Meeting to order. And I would love to have a volunteer open us up with the invocation today. Thank you, Gary.
Join me in prayer. Father God, we just ask your presence in this room. We celebrate you in our lives. We ask that you give us wisdom and patience and compassion. Help us to always do the right thing for the citizens of Kerrville. We ask all this in your name, Father. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. All right. Moving on to item 3, Visitors and Citizens Forum. Do we have any speakers signed up? No speakers signed up? Okay. And moving on to item number 4, 4A, approval of minutes. Minutes are attached. Are there any changes? If not, I'll entertain a motion to accept as presented.
So moved.
Okay, we have a motion. Second? Second. Got that? Okay, all in favor? Very good. And the motion passes. Monthly reports, KEDC.
Madam Chair, members of the board, I'll go ahead and start with some of our prospect activity. So we have Project Fuselage. We received an inquiry to submit for a particular project. We sent a proposal last week. This is a European company in the aerospace sector. This is a company that manufactures carriage and internal infrastructure systems for fighter jets. They're looking at existing or new construction for a 150,000 square foot facility. This would be an MRO facility. They would be conducting maintenance operations as well as assembly operations. This would be for the American fleet as well as those in the private sector. Again, this would be a 50 to 70 person operation. The reason they're looking at Kerrville is because of our aerospace supply chain infrastructure that's still kind of small, but again, it's getting us on the radar as far as some of these companies. And they know that they can pull as far as workforce from the San Antonio area, considering that it's a very niche skill set that they need. So again, this is good as far as some of the companies that have come into the area, getting us on that radar for some of these companies.
Gil, you said there's a 150,000 square foot facility. That's something we have available?
It's for existing or for new construction.
Okay.
So in this case, for Kerrville, it'll be new construction.
New construction, okay.
Yeah, and they're looking at 3 different states. So,
Gotcha.
like everything else, you know, these projects, they reached out to us. This was a contact that we made at the air show back in the summer. But again, they started looking at the data and they're like, okay, you know, this is a community that'll qualify. So we'll be one of 30 communities, somewhat of a long shot, but we're no strangers to long shots. I mean, we've done very well. Killdeer, they've officially moved into their new facility at the Airport Industrial Park. That's on State Highway 27. They're excited about the new space now that they have the ability to really grow into it. So we're excited as well. We'll be conducting a tour for the EDC board as well as the EIC and the City Council here in the next couple of months. I think their grand opening ceremony is going to be in February, I believe. So again, now they're starting to really plan for that. Not too sure if I mentioned this last time or not, but they won the Supplier of the Year award at the annual Aerospace Convention in Florida last month. Kerrville has definitely enhanced their operations because they have 3 other companies up in North Dakota. So I like to say that, you know, with the Kerrville operation, it's definitely allowed them the opportunity to get this award. Last month, we hosted several investors. Actually, it was a group of 3 investors. They came in from the San Antonio and Houston area. They're asking about hotel opportunities, an entertainment venue, small manufacturing firms that perhaps are looking to sell and have the possibility to grow, as well as a logistics operation. So we'll get these every now and then. They're just coming in and kind of kicking the tires and see what's here. Some of the other projects, we've got Project Spacecraft, 1954, and Project Seafloor. No major movement with those, and that's typical during the first few months. Ernst & Young, one of the big 4 firms, I think we mentioned this here, or we've talked about it in the last few months. Katie was in Houston at the Texas Economic Development Council annual conference, where she was recognized with her efforts with the Child Care Initiative. This was both by the TDC as well as Ernst & Young. So again, we were one of 4 cities that were selected in the state of Texas for being creative and approaching some of the community challenges. They hosted a special event at the annual conference where they recognized and congratulated the four different communities. That included McAllen, Corpus Christi, Lubbock, and then Kerrville. They unveiled some of the videos that they did for these particular communities at the conference, and actually this morning they released it publicly as part of a whole national campaign. Again, just pretty exciting for us to be a part of that at the national level. And then we also attended the International Economic Development Council annual conference. This year it was in Dallas. So in addition to some of the seminars and workshops, we both had some committee meetings that we attended. And then another recognition. So we had a gold award that we received. And Katie was there to receive the award on behalf of the community, and that was for the Child Care Initiative again. And again, just working and making sure that we keep Kerrville at the top of the list in regards to some of the prospect activity, some of the accolades that we have, because when site selectors are looking at different communities, this is one of the things that will pop up. So with that, somewhat of a short report, I'll be turning it over to Katie. She'll share a little bit about the Texas Venture Crawl, and then we're actually going to show the video that was unveiled at the conference here for you all as well. And then we're happy to answer any questions.
Thank you.
All right.
Okay, awesome. Somebody's gonna have to help me understand how to access the.
It'll come up.
It will? Oh, hey. Thank you. Look at Michael's magic.
That's what it is.
Good afternoon, Madam Chairman and council members. I'd like to share with you some of the initial results that we have generated from the Texas Venture Call that we hosted on Friday evening, October 6th. So here you'll see our attendance and demographics. We had about 66 folks register for the event. And about 36 attended, which is about a 55% conversion rate, which I was pretty pleased with, given that we had some pretty hefty competition with the Tybee Homecoming, the Ingram Homecoming, and the TML conference. Of the 36 folks that did attend, the breakdown was we had 12 that were service providers. We had about 10 that were startups, 10 that recognized themselves as other, and 4 from the venture community, which really pleased me. It's a little bit of a challenge to raise investors and get them to identify themselves and attend events like this, so I was really pleased that we did have 4 from the venture community at our event. Here's a breakdown of the rough numbers of the costs. Our speaker fee was around $3,900, $300 in thank you gifts, $483 bar tab, $1,000 in radio ads, $900 in social media marketing, and $185 for 1099 staff. We were able to recoup some of those expenses through an HCTC sponsorship and also a radio sponsorship. So the net for this event came in around $4,700. Divided by 36 gives us a rough cost of around $132 per person. And I'd like to share with you some of the testimonials that we got that help understand that investment. So Alex Martinez was a startup who attended this event. She said she was taking notes as fast as she could. I'll definitely be in attendance at the next one. And she liked the layout of having the informational and educational time followed by scheduled time to visit and network. Greg Richards was a service provider. He says that the panel that was put together was well-rounded and engaged with the audience, and would love to see the KEDC facilitate an ongoing effort to continue to build the venture ecosystem in Kerrville. Howard Freeman, also a service provider, I thought his comment was interesting. Good, solid local folks, and they seem to have left their egos at home. Very approachable. Jeremy Walther, he's also a small business owner from the community. He says the food truck did very well, and we appreciate the business too. Adriana, also a startup, she says, I left with a plethora of valuable information that will help me succeed in my manufacturing business. And Greg Richards actually was interviewed by Louis Amestoy on Greg Richards' podcast, The Bald Truth. It was a really great summary of the event. I know because I was in the email thread that Greg facilitated to round up all the comments from the expert panelists, that he really did a good job of hitting the high notes of the summary. So if you weren't able to attend, I strongly encourage you to check out Greg's podcast. Lewis can probably add some additional information to this, but I believe that it's hosted on Facebook Live. I couldn't find it on his YouTube channel, but I did create a bit.ly link that will lead you straight to it. So please go check it out if you haven't or if you weren't able to be there. And that concludes my report, and we're happy to answer any questions.
You can.
I think we'll cue up the video. Michael, can you wave your magic wand?
Arden's got the magic wand back there.
Oh, Martin does?
He's the Wizard of Oz.
No video.
They don't have the video.
Usually
Oh.
I just Martin's
If you stand up, it happens?
behind somebody.
He didn't have the video.
Oh,
Oh, he
okay.
doesn't have it.
I can give him the URL quickly.
Is that it right there? You two talk, and I'll talk about, if you're up for it, move on to
Yeah.
updates on our stuff.
We can move on to item 5A while we wait for the video.
5B.
I'm sorry. Oh, that was 5A. 5B.
Not too many updates, as it is right now. You heard about Killdeer from Gil, so that's exciting stuff. Really, really happy that they're in that facility. Peterson Medical has received their first tranche of funds, so you see that building is anywhere in town, you see it going up, it's going up quickly, so they're doing a good job. We're looking forward to when that thing will be open and operational. The fitness park, we have a punch list of items back to the installers, and they're still working through it.
Wow.
It's taking longer than any of us want to, and so, but staff is on them to get that thing done. Downtown area streetscapes, if you drove in today, you noticed there was some new striping on the road there, right at Clay and Water Street. And K-Pub is just about finished with everything that they've got done, and so now we're moving on to our phase of that. And so we have that striping in, and Stuart's team is gonna continue to be working on that project, and then we'll be working with the folks from Cuts on some of their kind of design features that they'll have.
Oh, are they gonna work on the funding of some of the aesthetic elements to that crosswalk?
That's the way that Megan was describing it to me, so I'm
Okay.
excited about that. Yeah, so we'll see. More to come on that. Downtown River Trail Extension, we are in the process of getting the surveys completed, and once the surveys are all done, easements into the hands of everyone, signed, sealed, and delivered, and we're done, and then we'll get on our construction schedule and get going.
Where are you at on the easements?
So surveys is going on as we speak, and so once we get the surveys
Define
completed,
that
the easement
area.
documents will be in everybody's hands, done, completed, and then we're finished with the survey portion.
And you think you're not anticipating any issues with the easements?
I don't, we've worked through all the discussions, all the topics, it's really just now getting to the point of just getting the surveys on paper and attached to the easements, and then we're going.
Yeah, they've seen the documents.
Yeah.
The easement document, so they're,
And
we're just waiting on the
nobody's
survey.
raising a big red flag and,
No.
great.
No big red
That's
flags.
excellent.
Nimitz Lake, you saw the presentation, right? You know the dollar figure for doing the river trail out there. Same issues in that, I would imagine that first phase is we saw like A, phase B, getting all the way to Thompson, C down to the boat ramp area. A would be that first phase, and that was about $4 million for that portion. And I think those same issues apply today as they did previously, 10 years ago. Some of the, acquiring some of those easements is gonna be more challenging than areas we have downtown. So more to come on that. And then Travis Street Pump Station upsizing, coming to council next meeting will be the design engineering for that. And so once we get that, start moving on the design, and then following that will be the construction. And with that, I will turn it back over for any questions y'all
Any
have.
questions?
So on the Traverse Street pump station upsizing, once the design, then you'll put it out to bid and see where we're at on our numbers?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Hopefully it's gonna come in under budget, right?
Yes, sir. Yeah, there's some, and so in that figure, there was some contingency already built in, and we had some buffer in there.
I know.
Right? Obviously, that number was a little old, but we are very hopeful that we'll come in well below that. I mean, the number inside in the water and wastewater plant's 559, and we have 750 built into that. So our hope is we come back to you with some dollars to give right back. That's the hope.
We'll be watching.
Yes. All right. Any more questions?
Anyone else, questions? No? Okay,
And
thank
I
you,
will turn
Michael.
it back over to Katie.
It seems that the city's firewall is not allowing us to access the URL. So I've sent the link to Kesha, and she is going to forward it out to everyone so you guys can view it at your leisure. So I apologies for the tech
No, thank
challenges.
Thanks for
But
trying.
you should know that it's a secure system.
So secure.
That's very, very, very
You
important.
can sleep well tonight. So any questions?
No, thank y'all. Yeah, good job. Monthly financials.
Alrighty. How's everybody today?
Good.
All right, we're looking at September financials, the last month of the fiscal year, and here we are. So, statement of activities, for your September sales tax, that came in at $404,000 for the month. That was a 1.5% increase over September of '22. Manufacturing was up significantly, retail contributed pretty good. So year-to-date, $5,047,000. You are currently missing your year-to-date estimate by $95,000. We've talked about that, just really unpredictable. We do have some accrual entries for October and November to book still, so that changed a little bit, probably $50,000 or so. So we do anticipate to miss budget, possibly about $125,000, $150,000 for the year. Let's see, we did receive October sales tax on Friday. That was $465,000. Preliminarily, that shows to be a 5.5% increase or 5.3% increase. There was a future period payment in there. We're getting our report back from the comptroller, and we'll dissect that to see how that plays out. But we have to consider if we had an overpayment last year, overpayment this year may line out. So we'll have that number next month before we start the new year fiscal year numbers. We'll do a recap of fiscal year '23 for y'all. Interest income, $35,000 for the month, brings you to $323,000 for the year, and that's a pretty good return there for the year. Expenditures, we have some legal service fees. That was for the Lennar project, and then professional service to the city for the month, and then your monthly debt transfer. We did do a reinvestment of one of your CPs, your commercial papers that matured in August, as well as we took into consideration the commercial paper that was maturing in November, so we went ahead and bought a $1 million piece. And that is earning 5.74%, and that'll mature in 9 months with a total return of $25,000. Down in your project section, we did send out the last payments for the airport project, the box hangar site work. Those were a little bit delayed coming in. And we did transfer out the full Hewitt engineering contract, $182,000 for the Nimitz Trail, River Trail. Okay, so September change in net position is a negative $831,000, but we made that large investment purchase. But year to date, $1.77 million. Okay. On to the cash flow. Not a lot going on there. Ending cash balance, $5.365 million, and then the columns to the right are just jumping into the fiscal year '24 numbers. All right, your financial analysis. Top chart on the left is your sales tax analysis. Looks like the fiscal year average growth over last year through September was 5.66%. And your bottom chart are your remaining project balances. Those projects are starting to move a little bit, so you see your remaining commitments there. And then chart to the right is your investments and cash balances. Looks like Texpool was earning about 5.5% for September. It has come down 10 basis points from last month at 5.65. I mean, really don't know what that means, but our investment advisors say that the pools are the first ones to see the changing in the market, so we're just kind of keep watch on it, see what's going on. But the Feds will be meeting again October 31st, November, see what they're going to do. They held fast with the rate last month. They do anticipate another rate hike before the end of the calendar year. Okay, any questions on monthly financials?
Questions?
All right, we wanted to also bring you just an update of where we are on the revenue bonds. So today we met with S&P for a bond rating. We had a conference call, Dalton, Michael, myself, Trina, and Julie. We just discussed the overall growth of Kerrville on the residential commercial fronts, also with the industrial side of everything it's doing. We just have a lot of housing developments and commercial businesses opening doors. So all that growth directly impacts what our sales tax is going to do. So obviously we're focusing highly on that. We just looked at budget variances year over year. What else? We did have cybersecurity questions, back to what Katie was talking about, or Charvy's high-tech firewalls here. So we looked at some debt service coverage ratio numbers. Right now, EIC's debt service coverage ratio is at 3 times. So basically how we explain, you can pay your debt service 3 times over. They want us to be at least at 1.5, so we're good on that front. It went pretty good. So Monday, the 23rd, we should receive our rating.
Is there any prediction, any feeling about where we'll come out on that?
Yeah, we don't really know. With our debt service coverage ratio being how great it is, that's a good sign. Talking about the growth and all that we have going on, everything seemed pretty positive.
Okay. This is the same where we can have an A, a double A.
So we're double A.
We're currently.
This would be EIC's rating, however. So
Right.
A plus.
The city's double A, but
We have
the
A
EIC doesn't have a
plus, and
rating.
then we have a double A. But we're still using the same grading system.
Yes,
For
we're
the
with
rating.
Standard & Poor's.
Okay.
Okay, and following that, on the 13th, we'll have a regular EIC meeting so that you can vote on to sell the bonds or not. And then following Tuesday, council will approve your actions, if you so forth go forth. And then looks like Ann has sent us the rest of the timetable would be the 28th. We would price the bonds, see what kind of interest rates and everything we can get. And then looks like closing would be around mid-December, the 19th.
You have an anticipation of what the interest rate's going to be?
We don't know. The last we had was a cushion plug she gave us at 4.5, but that was a 50 basis point cushion. So we can get that. We can see where we're at right now today, what they're looking like.
I mean, the good thing overall with the basis points and with, our overall standing, even if it's at 4.5, even if it's at 5, we're relatively confident just even in investment strategies that we'll be able to stay ahead of it, regardless, even if it's just a principal only payments without having to pay interest, so.
Gary, on the water revenues, for example, we oversold by like 8 times or something like that, so that brought our interest rate way down too, because we predicted like 4.40, we ended up selling those bonds for 3.90.
That brings it, okay.
Yeah, so a lot of it depends on who's gonna invest.
Huh.
So we go out, if you oversell, then they'll have to go back out again, and then the interest rates that they offer will change, and so the more they sell, then you'll only keep those investors that on the lower half of the scale. So we are gonna do a negotiate on this. So that, hopefully we'll oversell, and that'll bring that rate down too. So what it did on the water, it helped us substantially.
Okay. Other questions?
Okay, and we have one more thing. We did bring back to you your 10-year cash flow, and we decided to make sure we updated that with the potential Lennar development. That was the $5 million deal. So we want to plug those numbers in right above that green line. You can see the Lennar development. As well, we still took into account future projects, so that if you had other asks that came to us during all this transition with revenue bonds coming online, Lennar project going out, you still had those monies to consider new projects. So, we wanted you to stay around 2.5, 3 million if we could on, reserve fund balance, or fund balance after all commitments go out the door each year.
How much did you say?
2.5 to 3 million is, you see that blue line at the bottom is your cash balances. Specific questions on this?
Questions? I don't hear any.
So
All
just-
right.
I mean, just doing the math in my head, and I know we've talked about it in the past, we're gonna be running right at 50% of our cash flow going to bonds.
You're correct. I think I had some 42% starting out, yeah.
So you said we're up to 50?
Yes, in some years.
And that's,
So your payments are gonna be 2.6 at the highest, so your 24 projected is 5.26 million, so right at 50. And then it starts to inch up in terms of your revenue, so that number will decrease a little bit. So just under 50.
But we're gonna be running into the 50% range until we pay that next first series of bonds off.
Yes.
And that will be, what, 2033? And then you'll have, so you have at 31, you go from, 31 to 32, you go from
Yep.
1,086,000 down to 601 for existing current debt now. So you drop about 400,000 right there. And then,
Yeah, and we do have sales tax, very conservative on here, it's pretty flat. So we got potential for growth on that revenue side also.
Potential.
What'd you plug in on sales tax?
I think we had this at a 1% year over year.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you, Trina. Thank you, Julie, in Finance Department. Do we have any citizen speakers to this item signed up?
Not for the monthly
Nope. Okay. All right. And we'll move on to item 6A, consideration and possible action for the Economic Development Grant Agreement between Lennar Homes of Texas and the City of Kerrville, Texas EIC Corporation.
We do have 3 citizen speakers.
thank y'all for taking the time today. We appreciate it. The draft agreement you see in front of you, the recommendation from staff is, as we get into it, is one change in it, and we'll get into that. And it has to do with the closing on the property. Other than that, Martin, do you have that presentation? There we go. Is there a PowerPoint back there, Martin? There we go. All right, so as we've all discussed over the months as we've been talking about this, that outline is the proposed development area, the whole annexation area, I'm sorry, for the property that Shriner currently owns that they're proposing to sell to Lennar, a portion of 100 acres to be exact, and the remainder of that to stay within Shriner's possession, and they're annexing that property as we speak. So they're going through an annexation and a planned development district for Lennar's piece, and theirs will be a PDD for the residential, and then the Shriner piece is set to be ag. And there's the portion that is along Loop 534 that is going to be zoned for commercial property. So the orientation of this is a little funky, so if you imagine twisting this to the left counterclockwise to get us north, this is the phasing exhibit for Lennar's regional infrastructure. So the dark green line you see there and the dark blue line represent the collector roads, and they're the phases of that. So phase 1 would be that first green line and the first phase of their development associated with that. And then phase 2 of their project, along with that blue line that will connect down to Olympic Drive, would be the second portion of that. In the same vein, the first phase of their project will include that, though I'm not sure what color we would call that, salmon, maybe? Yeah, salmon. Yeah, would be the first portion of that drainage. And that drainage will be designed to collect on that commercial drainage that is going to be along Loop 534. And the second phase of that in the seafoam green, let's call it that, would be the second phase of that drainage, and partially would help with any of the future development that is in the rear of the property that Shriner will retain ownership of. That will be Exhibit D in the agreement. So, what are the deliverables? So Shriner is going to complete that regional infrastructure along their property. What the ask has been is a $2 million initial investment upon completion of the first phase of that regional detention. That's what's in the agreement. And then subsequent up to $750,000 payments annually as they complete those deliverables. And what we have set in the agreement is 62 homes per year over 4 years for a total of $5 million over the course of the grant. Now, the proposed development is for 500 homes. 490 homes is what we put into the agreement just to give them a little bit of latitude, not knowing what the market's going to do. But for the purposes of the agreement, we all wanted to give, everybody wanted to have a little bit of latitude in terms of what they were going to have to complete for you all for your agreement. So, with that being said, the draft that you have before you, with the exception of section 4.1A, is that right? Is it A? 4.1A, currently has that Lennar will close on the property within 90 days of the signing of the agreement. And so they had a concern with that because they have several phases of entitlement to still go through. So what their request is that that be 9 months. So let me unpack that a little bit. So tonight, they're discussing the agreement with you all. Next meeting, they'll be discussing the agreement with the city council related to the TERS and the planned development district. Subsequent to that, they still have to go through the platting process. So they won't actually close on the properties until they get that plat approved, they close on it, and they move. And so they feel like 90 days is insufficient for them to get through all of that, from preliminary plat to final plat. They haven't been annexed yet, so they wanted to put in 9 months into that date. So that would be the one change that you would see within the agreement.
Michael, am I wrong to kind of assume that in reality, with a 9-month possible closing, before they begin any phase of construction, the $2 million is not going to be payable in 24?
I think when we talked to, and I'm sorry, I didn't introduce anybody. So James McKnight is attorney for Lennar, and Clifton Karam is the development liaison with Lennar, and that's who we've been working with these last couple of years now as we're working through this. So when we discussed if they were able to start now in their infrastructure, 18 months, I think, was kind of the time frame to get that completed.
Yes, I agree with you, sir. Right, I think fiscal year
just-
25 is probably more realistic.
I'm looking at our timeline on our cash flow analysis, and I'm thinking that's probably
Right.
And
Push
really,
out
I know how it works.
and it would just push
Yeah.
it, yeah,
Sure.
yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Let's see. And we've gone over this many times. So with that, I will turn it over to y'all
Yeah,
for
so
any
this will be
questions
pushed
about
over.
the particulars within the agreement.
Michael, what's your opinion about the feasibility of entitlements in a 9-month period? Is that seem about right to you?
I think we're being conservative, but I think for the sake of the agreement, it's a good number. You know, this is going based off of the last round, which took a considerable amount of time to get everything completed, when Ridgeland was getting started. So, I think, so it didn't rush the process. My hope was that this would all be done in 6 months. That's my hope. But just for the sake of the agreement, putting 9 months in there seems like a good number, and a number that Clifton is agreeable to. We don't want to bring back any question marks on this for y'all.
Questions? And what action, Councilmember Herring, did council take at the last meeting?
We approved on first reading annexation. We approved on first reading creation of a TERS.
And council asked that staff and Lennar go to the county commissioners to request that they participate in the TERS. That is yet to be placed on their agenda. They had a meeting today, but the meeting was to fill the seat vacated by Commissioner Blue. Yeah, so hopefully we'll hear from them for inclusion in next week's meeting.
Any specific questions on the agreement? Okay. Keisha, sis? George Baruti?
George Brody, 1616 Glen Road. So one of the changes that you guys made, I would assume it's in reference to what I was asking you about before, which is that this project didn't fulfill the compliance issues for utilizing 505-130, I think is what the number was, of your codes for affordable housing. Yet, by pulling it out, if you could put that one up with the map on there, it would help if you could. You still have a housing project. By pulling that code out, you haven't really fixed the problem. You just kind of put lipstick on a pig. The bottom part is the only commercial part, and it's not part of the project that you're looking at. All of the infrastructure that's being built is to service the residential aspect of this development, and your contract actually describes the development as single-family residential housing development. It describes regional infrastructure as the portion of the public infrastructure required to constructed in association with that residential development, meaning the roads and infrastructure that goes up in there. None of that infrastructure is to enhance the development of the commercial property. It is all developed off of the loop. So none of what you're funding has anything to do with commercial development. And as such, you can't utilize EIC funds for a housing development unless you do it in that very specific way of, I think it's 505-130, where you have to qualify the buyers, you have to qualify the homes, and all of that. So what is essentially going on anyways, when you add up the TERS, is the total projected public subsidy is at a minimum $18 million, 5 from you and 13 or so from the TERS. That's almost $40,000 per home. And what Lennar is going to do is sell the homes theoretically at a $40,000 discount and be reimbursed for that. So the community is still paying full boat for each of these houses, this entire development. And I think it was you who referred to something like this as we're doing each other's laundry. We're essentially building houses and saying we're giving a discount to one, but everybody else is paying for it, so we're doing their laundry. We haven't generated new money. We're actually going to have a shortfall in your budgets from the TERS, but as far as EIC is concerned, you guys are spending money on a project that's already been overly incentivized, and it's not actually getting the goal done. You're not bringing cheaper housing to the community. You're bringing cheaper housing to a handful of people. 490 may seem like more than a handful, but at the end of the day, the developer leaves with the same amount, and we have the only discount being given is being given by the community who is reaping the reward. So we're just regurgitating, we're just doing each other's laundry. So I would urge you to reconsider this project, but also look very sharply at the legality of the code. Thank you.
Edward Hamilton.
Hello. My name's Ed Hamilton. I've lived here since 1975. I'm a local realtor. I've sold about 3,000 to 4,000 houses to people in Kerrville, some of you. I brought about 1,500 people to Kerrville. I didn't do it alone, but I take credit for part of that. For 50 years, I've had a deep and abiding interest in what happens in Kerrville, and I know you do too. You wouldn't be here. 1992, I was one of the 3 original members of EIC. We formed EIC to build Holsworth Drive. The first $1.9 million is what we built it with. I'm proud of the fact that it's probably worth $10 million now, right? Well, I never envisioned, and neither did any of the other founding members, that we would be spending our grandchildren's money with bond issues on quality of life things. And back when we formed EIC, we had about $35 million in bonded debt with the school, the city, and the county. Today, do you know how much debt we have? $234 million in bonded debt. You're talking about adding bonded debt to this. Now look into our future. The world is in flames. We're looking at some rough economic times. Maybe like 1990. I don't think now's the time to take even 4.5% money if you're obligating 50% of your cash flow. You need to be in a racehorse position with your funds. And if I was your lender, I wouldn't lend you money with $134 million. Now you say it's not our debt, it's city, county, and school. But I'm one of the taxpayers. The reason I got interested in what you're doing is because I got my tax bills and saw that my taxes went up to $127,000 this year for school, county, and city. And last year it was 105. So if that continues, I'm headed for a train wreck. And I think you are too. I think you ought to look again at your debt and minimize it. I think it's important. Let's don't spend our kids' inheritance. Thank you. I'll make it.
It just beeped.
Do I
It
have
just
any
beeped.
questions?
You're good.
No, just to clarify, Mr. Hamilton, this particular project, although we are talking about in the future a debt issuance, this particular project is not a debt issuance project, just to clarify that. But there will be in a future meeting we will be talking about a debt issuance.
Yeah, okay. You know where I'm coming from. And I hope to get more involved. I've been out of the business for 20 years now. I've got an interest in, so
Absolutely.
I think you're the
Thank
only
you.
one I don't know, but I'd like to get to know you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here.
Thanks, Ed.
Pablo Brinkman.
Pablo Brinkman, 3928 Oak Park Drive. Thank you all for the time today. Everybody should know Ed Hamilton. He's done a lot, and Ed, you're far from retired.
True.
I think that a few things I want to pivot a little bit is that we concentrate on really what is before us, and what is before us is not what Mr. Hamilton said, or I dare to say what Mr. Baruti said as well, because These taxes are new tax dollars that we'll discuss in front of council on the tiers. As far as Mr. Broody knows the vernacular better than I do and can quote chapter and verse, but I said this at city council, if you build it, they will come. So indeed, members of EIC, Madam Chairman, the commercial will be developed fully, but that's completely separate. Lennar has nothing to do with our 350-foot depth. We have several interested parties that are going to come once we start going vertical and want to see the project going. But I just want to encourage y'all and thank y'all for the time. It's been a long time coming, and hopefully any questions will be answered today. But on behalf of Schreiner University, we appreciate everybody's work on this. Thank you.
Couple of things. When we talk about regional infrastructure and looking specifically at the drainage piece, just for that along 534, Michael, is this is a regional element that will serve more than the housing project?
Yes, ma'am, it is. Yes, ma'am, I disagree with that assessment. So this, we will force that detention to handle all of that commercial development, as well as detention to that ag area behind it. There's a portion of that will come down that street just because of the topography on that hill, but yes, ma'am, it will handle beyond what is there.
Okay. That's one question. And then legalities, I'm sure others have spoken to you as well about, because this is not the first time that Mr. Broody has raised questions. Is there anything you want to speak to as far as being challenged that we're not acting within our authority?
I always hesitate to go into specifics in an open session, but I don't I'll echo what Mr. Horns just said. I don't agree with his assessment of both. Well, I'll stick to the law. I mean, I wouldn't, I hope you all know I wouldn't put an agreement in front of you that's legally deficient in any form or fashion, so I stand by the agreement.
So, are there any other questions either about the presentation, what was said? We have the developer, we have the attorney for the developer in the room right now, so this is an opportunity if there are any lingering questions, either specific to the agreement or just in general about what we're doing, if anyone wants to ask those. Yes, sir.
The $750,000 a year going forward that Harness mentioned, that's not bond money?
No, sir.
It's
Cash.
Yeah, this is.
sales tax money?
That's correct. All right, so we have a recommendation from staff to approve the agreement before us with a change to item 4.1A, changing 90 days, strike that, and replace with 9 months to fulfill after the effective date. And if there's no more discussion, we'll entertain a motion to approve such agreement.
So moved.
We have a motion and we have a second. All in favor, please let it be known by raising your hand. Okay. Any opposed? Were you, I didn't see your hand earlier. You have the opposed?
Oh, I'm for it.
For it. Okay. That's right. You made the motion.
I made the motion.
All right. So that is approved. Sorry, I couldn't, we're good. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, staff. This has been on our radar for a long time. Appreciate your work on that. Okay, now I've lost my agenda. All right, let's see, where are we? Got it. Thank you. Oh, I don't believe we have a reason to go into executive session. Do we have a reason that we need to go into executive? Nothing for executive session? Okay. All right. Staff members, any items to consider for future agendas?
Just to reiterate that we are going to have the public hearing for the sales tax bonds on November 13th. So that's going to be November 13th for that consideration of that $20 million sales tax bond.
So next meeting.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Okay. All right, hearing nothing further, at 4:50, we are adjourned.